Un'ora segnata dal destino batte nel cielo della nostra patria. La dichiarazione di guerra è già stata consegnata agli ambasciatori. Scendiamo in campo contro le democrazie plutocratiche e reazionarie dell'Occidente, che in ogni tempo hanno ostacolato la marcia e spesso insidiato l'esistenza medesima del popolo italiano. La parola d'ordine è una sola, categorica e impegnativa per tutti. Essa già trasvola ed accende i cuori dalle Alpi all'Oceano Indiano. Vincere!
The Littorio-class battleships of 1934 are a class of 4 fast battleships designed and built by the Regia Marina during the Washington and London Naval Treaty. The class was comprised of the following ships: Littorio, named after the Roman profession lictor and renamed to Italia in 1943; Vittorio Veneto, named after the Italian victory at Vittorio Veneto during the First World War; Roma, named after the city of Rome; and the partially completed Impero, named after the newly formed Italian Empire in East Africa. The class's origin can be traced all the way back to 1922, where the newly signed Washington Naval Treaty imposed a restriction of 71,000 tons worth of capital ship tonnage on the Italians. From 1927 to 1929, the Regia Marina sought to design and lay down a pair of 35,000-ton capital ships which could comfortably meet the requirements of the Washington Naval Treaty, which I'll be calling WNT from now on for convenience's sake. However, the angry wine-sipping solid-shot lovers from across the borders, France, was also allocated the same amount of capital ship tonnage, pressuring both the original countries which had signed the WNT to grant them permission to construct capital ships of a small displacement and smaller caliber main armament. The Italians cooked up a proposal in 1928 which would displace around 23,000 tons, armed with 6 15-inch 381mm guns mounted in twin turrets. However, armor along with range would be significantly hindered to stay within the limits of the previously mentioned displacement of 23,000 tons. The French would also come up with a similar design. With a significantly reduced tonnage, Regia Marina could in theory construct 3 capital ships, allowing 2 to remain operational while the other, for whatever reason, is not available. Later that same year, another proposal was presented, this time displacing at 35,000 tons, returning to the Italians' same goals previously. The increase in displacement meant a larger armament of 16-inch 406mm, presumably in the same twin turret configuration. Its armor layout would not be anything noteworthy of the period, being good enough to defeat smaller caliber projectiles. By then, the battleship building holiday imposed on the United Kingdom, United States, Japan, France, and Italy would soon expire in 1931. Only then would funds be granted to the Italians to construct their pair of treaty battleships. So this meant a 3-year hiatus of sorts. As the expiration date of the battleship holiday crept around the corner, politicians were careful to avoid sparking another arms race with the baguette-munching addicts, with the current state of the Italian economy, which to put lightly, had gone to shit after the Wall Street crash of 1929. Amid the chaos, the London Naval Treaty was signed, extending the battleship holiday well until 1936. As both Italy and France had stuck a middle finger, Italy's being a rolling pin, with the French being a long as baguette, to the British proposal of measly capital ships displacing about 26,000 tons, armed with only 12-inch 305mm guns. This allowed the nations to proceed with whatever larger designs they had in mind. In 1932, the proposal for the light battleship or pocket battleship was discarded in favor for larger proposals.
I may butcher some spelling, but it's fine. But I shall continue. Again in 1932, the onion-smelling goblins would lay down the keels of the Dunkirk-class battleships, those being the Dunkirk and Strasbourg. Upon receiving this news, the design staff, presumably running circles around in their office and screaming scrambled to come up with a design capable of combating this new threat. Ansaldo would submit a design dubbed Project 770, mounting six 13.5-inch or 343mm guns mounted in triple turrets, all the while being crammed in a tiny-ass hull of only 18,900 tons in displacement in 1933. Yet, another proposal for a ship was submitted, this time displacing 26,500 tons and mounting eight 13.5-inch 343mm guns in twin turrets, presumably arranged in a ABXY configuration, slightly better than the Dunkirk. Feeling a little bit more confident, the Italians had another go, this time displacing 35,000 tons and boasting 16-inch or 306mm guns. This would be later be modified to have smaller 15-inch or 381mm guns, previously intended to be mounted on the planned Francesco Caracciolo class super dreadnoughts of 1913. Finally, in 1934, the design was further refined to bear nine 15-inch or 381mm guns, mounted in triple turrets arranged in an ABX configuration. A few more touch-ups by the design staff and the displacement of the design would surpass 40,000 tons. After years of troubled development, the final design submitted would be approved and construction would begin right away. The keels of Littorio and Vittorio Veneto would be laid down on the 28th of October 1934, with Vittorio Veneto being launched on the 22nd of July 1937, with a sister following suit another month later. Before completion, however, Vittorio Veneto underwent a machinery trial without her secondary and anti-aircraft battery installed on the 23rd of October 1939. She would eventually be delivered to the Regina Marina at Trist, fitted out and accepted into service on the 15th of May 1940. After the launching of both Littorio and Vittorio Veneto, the keels of Roma and Impero would be laid down in response to the French Richelieu-class battleships. Both ships were intended to have an improved anti-aircraft armament and a larger tonnage. Roma's hull would be laid down on 18 September 1938, launched in June of 1940 and accepted into service on the 14th of June 1942. Impero's keel was laid down on 14th May 1938 and launched on 15th November 1939, with Italy's declaration of war on the United Kingdom and France. The incomplete hull of the Impero would later be moved to Brindisi, where it remained partially completed until the Germans seized and used it as target practice. What a bummer. Even though the four ships of the class were sister ships, each of them differed very slightly in their dimensions. Littorio and Vittorio Veneto would come in at an impressive 224.05 meters lengthwise and 32.82 meters for their beam. Roma and Impero were slightly longer, coming in at 240.68 meters, while having the same beam length. The displacement of each of the ships would be as follows. Littorio with 45,236 tons, Roma with 45,485 tons, and Vittorio Veneto with 45,029 tons. And Impero's displacement is currently being unknown as she wasn't completed due to the war. The crew complement of Littorio and Vittorio Veneto averaged at around 80 officers and 1,750 crew members, while Roma's and Impero's had an additional 11, also commanding staff. All ships of the class would have a stern-mounted aircraft, catapult, and hangar capable of launching 3 Imam Ro .45 or Regine RE .2000 aircraft. I'm pretty sure those are two scout ships. Yeah, for those who don't know. Propulsion would come in the form of 4 geared turbines and 8 oil-fired Yarrow boilers, with the engines being rated at 128,200 horsepower, giving the ship's top speed of 30 knots. For fuel, the ships carried 4,140 tons of oil, giving them a maximum range of 4,518 nautical miles or 8,480 kilometers, while traveling at a cruising speed of 60 knots, which was an impressive propulsion system. The Littorios also had an impressive armament. Their main armament would consist of 9 Canuda 381/50 Ansaldo M1934 15-inch or 381mm guns, mounted in triple turrets arranged in an ABX configuration, each capable of firing armor-piercing, high-explosive, and semi-armor-piercing. However, only the AP and SAP rounds have been used during combat. The AP rounds of the guns weighed roughly 884 kilograms and had a muzzle velocity of 850 meters per second, while the SAP weighed roughly 824 kilograms and had a muzzle velocity of 880 meters per second. The main guns were capable of a maximum elevation of 35 degrees, giving the guns a maximum firing range of 42.26 kilometers. The guns, however, suffered from a short barrel life. Their secondary battery was also nothing compared to Scoffet, boasting 12 Canuda 152/55 M1934 6-inch or 152mm guns mounted in triple turrets, evenly distributed around the superstructure and close to the main gun's barbettes. These guns will be mounted on the Regia Marina's Digli, Abruzzi, and Condottieri class light cruisers. The guns could fire 2 types of ammunition, being armor-piercing and high-explosive. The AP rounds of the guns weighed roughly 50 kilograms, muzzle velocity being 910 meters per second, while the HE rounds weighed roughly 44 kilograms, with muzzle velocity being somewhat close to 910 meters per second. The guns by themselves could also achieve a maximum elevation of 45 degrees and depress 5 degrees. Sounds very Russian. Giving the guns a total firing range of 25.7 kilometers. Anti-aircraft armament came in. Sorry, I got a bit of a sore throat, so yeah. Came in form of 12 Canuda 90/53 3.5-inch 90mm guns, placed in the single mounts, being clustered midships around the fore smokestack. These guns were notable for being stabilized, albeit not 100% mechanically reliable, and having a quick firing rate of 12 rounds per minute, achieving a maximum firing ceiling of approximately 10.8 kilometers. Finally, small caliber anti-air defenses came in the form of 20 Breda Cano Da 19/53 37mm guns and 16 Breda 20/65 Mod .35 20mm guns, intended for close range fire support, both having an effective range of 4 kilometers for the 37mm and 2.5 kilometer for the 20mm respectively. Now, for the pièce de résistance of the Littorio class, its armor scheme. The ships of the class boasted the most modern and most protected armor scheme of any Italian capital ship, simultaneously being on par with its European counterparts such as the Bismarck class. It's quite King George the Fifth class, and so forth. The main armor belt of the Littorios extended across their citadel, offering sufficient protection against 15-inch or 381mm shells. However, The most striking feature of these ships would be the Pugliese anti-torpedo defense systems designed by General Umberto Pugliese. The unique drum ship of the system consisted of a 40mm thick torpedo bulkhead extended inboard from the base of the main armor belt and curved downwards into a double hull. This created a void filled with liquid and protected with a 0.25-inch 6mm plate. The Pugliese system would run across the entirety of the torpedo bulkhead. On paper, this would reduce the effectiveness and spoil generated by explosive pressure of a 350 kg torpedo warhead. The system would demonstrate its effectiveness during the war, as both Littorio and Vittorio Veneto would be torpedoed extensively by the British forces in the Mediterranean. However, the Pugliese system had one fatal flaw, that being it could not function as intended without precision welding and riveting, as British attacks on previously mentioned ships had revealed weak riveting joints, resulting in a failure to reduce after effects of a torpedo strike. A temporary solution to this problem was to reduce the width of the torpedo drum from 3.6 meters to 2.28 meters.
On the 2nd of August 1940, Littorio and Vittorio Veneto were declared operational, being immediately assigned to the 9th Division, then comprised of 3 older dreadnoughts, 10 cruisers, and 31 destroyers. On the 31st of August 1940, the 9th Division would set sail to intercept convoy MB3, codenamed Operation Hats. Despite having a numerical advantage and superior firepower, poor reconnaissance that day prevented the formidable force from engaging the British. Talk about a bad day. Later on the 29th September 1940, the 9th Division would attempt to make another unsuccessful sortie against another Malta convoy. However, the attack on Taranto, which took place on the night of 11th November 1940, left Littorio badly damaged after being struck by 2 aerial torpedoes from the bow launched by Fairey Swordfish torpedo bombers. While the Vittorio Veneto would remain unscathed, Littorio would settle by the bow until she was dry docked on 11th December 1940. With Littorio out of action, Vittorio Veneto assumed the role of flagship of the 9th Division and was transferred to Naples. Sometime later, with the situation at Naples becoming more and more concerning and dangerous by each passing day, Supermarina, the High Command, ordered Vittorio Veneto and whatever remained of a task force to shift position to Sardinia on the 14th December 1940. After realizing Sardinia would make an ideal position to intercept British convoys. On the 17th of November 1940, Vittorio Veneto, along with the recently modernized dreadnought Julius Caesar, made a sortie to intercept a British convoy, codenamed Operation White. To no one's surprise, the Italians failed to establish contact with the Brits. However, on the 26th November 1940, the 2 battleships, along with 6 cruisers and 14 destroyers, encountered a British fleet comprised of the aircraft carrier HMS Ark Royal, the dreadnought HMS Ramillies, and the battlecruiser HMS Renown, south of Sardinia. Admiral Inigo Campioni, commanding the task force, was told not to take the risk and broke off. Vittorio Veneto, then enraged, opened fire on the British ships, successfully striking and damaging the escorting light cruiser HMS Manchester. In retaliation, the aircraft carrier HMS Ark Royal launched Fairey Swordfish torpedo bombers to attack the Vittorio Veneto, but to no avail. With 1940 being a fruitless year for the Regia Marina, would 1941 be a year where they could redeem themselves? Ha ha ha, no! On the 26th of March 1941, Vittorio Veneto would set sail to attack British convoys destined for Greece, while under pressure from the Germans. Over the course of 27th March to 29th March, the Italians and British duked it out at the Battle of Cape Matapan, with Vittorio Veneto engaging British cruisers and the aircraft carrier HMS Fortissimo launching even more torpedo bombers, this time scoring a hit on both the Vittorio Veneto and the escorting heavy cruiser RN Pola. From the engagement, Vittorio Veneto only managed to shoot down 1 aircraft while shipping about 4,000 tons of water from the torpedo strike. The battleship would make haste for Taranto and remained docked until July, where repairs were completed.
Later in August, Littorio finally had her repairs completed and could set sail on future sorties with her sister, Vittorio Veneto, which by now would have been traumatized by the previous sets of events. On the 22nd of August 1941, the reunited sisters sortied to attack a British convoy. They returned to port without encountering any trace of a British force. On the 26th of September, however, both ships along with 5 cruisers and 14 destroyers encountered Force H, escorting a convoy dubbed Operation Halberd. The escorting British forces would, would comprise of the treaty battleships HMS Nelson and Rodney, the fast battleship HMS Prince of Wales, and the aircraft carrier HMS Ark Royal, 5 light cruisers and 18 destroyers being led by Admiral James Somerville. To quote from Wikipedia, Operation Halberd was the largest multi-supply effort yet. After learning of the force's true strength, the Italians immediately broke off while escorting a convoy en route to North Africa. However, Vittorio Veneto would be struck by a torpedo from a U-class submarine HMS Urge, with repairs lasting until the spring of 1942. Littorio would have a go at convoy escort later in December 1942. Somewhere during the voyage, she and her escorts encountered, well, you guys guess it, more British forces, and managed to damage 2 British destroyers before breaking off to convoy cover M42. On 21st March 1942, Littorio and friends sorted to attack yet another British convoy, resulting in, guess what? If you guess British victory, you are f***ing wrong! It's Italian victory! Ah! Leaving the British destroyers HMS Havoc and HMS Kingston badly damaged. Shortly after repairs on Vittorio Veneto were completed, Littorio and Vittorio Veneto would make another attempt to engage the convoys dubbed Operation Vigorous and Operation Harpoon, which had previously departed from Gibraltar to supply Malta somewhere in June. Due to the presence of the Italians, the British broke off to avoid engaging the clearly superior Italian force. On the way home, Littorio was struck by a bomb from a B-24 Liberator, which dealt superficial damage and was struck by a torpedo from a Vickers Wellington. Repairs will be fully completed on the 12th of December. From the 8th to 16th November 1942, the Allies would commence Operation Torch. This prompted the Regia Marina to dispatch Littorio and Vittorio Veneto from Toronto to La Spezia, with Romo joining them and taking over the role of flagship for Littorio. A few months later, the Allies would attempt to neutralize the 3 battleships through a series of air-based attacks. What a bloody coward! With 2 bombs striking Vittorio Veneto and damaging the Roma on the 5th of June 1943, where she would be relocated to Genoa for repairs. Later on the 19th of June 1943, Littorio would be struck by 3 more bombs exactly 2 weeks after her sister was damaged. It was during this time where the regime of Benito Mussolini would collapse and allowing for the former Littorio to be renamed to Italia. Roma will receive further damage on another air raid on the 23rd of June 1943. After signing the armistice on 3rd September 1943, Italy withdrew from the Axis power, leaving Nazi Germany and Japan alone to fend off the Allies in the Atlantic and Pacific theaters. This meant the Regia Marina would be forced to surrender whatever remained of their force to the Royal Navy to be interned. And Roma was fucked by a Fritz X. That's just very messed up. I don't like it.
And so, the 3 ships set sail for Malta, where they would be interned. On their way to Malta, however, they would be attacked by a force of 6 Dornier DO 217-217Ks, each armed with the deadly Ruhrstahl SD 1400X, or Fritz X guided bombs. One of the bombs struck Italia on the bow, causing serious damage. Roma, however, was not so lucky. She was struck by a bomb which pierced through her decks and detonated underneath her keel, and a second bomb striking the forward magazine between turret A and B, causing a massive magazine detonation, which resulted in the catastrophic fatalities and the loss of a major capital ship for the Regia Marina. One ship down, Italia and Vittorio Veneto would make it to Malta, where they would be officially surrendered to the British Mediterranean Force until the 14th of September 1943, where they would be transferred to the port of Alexandria under British control. For the rest of the war, they will remain in the Suez Canal. On the 6th of June 1946, after the war, Vittorio Veneto sailed back to La Spezia one last time and would finally be broken up for scrap on 14th October 1948. Italia steamed for La Spezia, Italy, a year later, being stricken from the Navy on the 1st of June 1948 and broken up for scrap. As for the fate of Impero, her incomplete hulk had been sunk by American bombers during the closing stages of the war. Afterwards, her wreck would be raised on October 1947 and towed to Venice, where she would be broken up. So that was our first history-based video. I hope you enjoyed it. I really had a lot of fun writing that thing. I'll just pass the mic over to Aki real quick.
Why did he bloody leak my name? But it's fine. Anyway, I had fun doing this historical video with my friend. Can I see your name? Yeah, Nathan. Yeah, I had some historical fun. I had some fun. Shit, not historical fun. I'm sorry. I had some fun with Nathan and doing this video. And honestly, if I had to say anything, this is not made by AI. Obviously, it's not made by AI. It's not. Yes, especially Nathan's 12-hour research. Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, it's fine. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys have a fun time ahead. Nathan, what you want to say to the viewers watching this video?
All I have to say is hope you guys enjoyed. Like and subscribe, and have a great day.
That's nothing. I guess it's goodbye. Bye bye, lads.